It's Thanksgiving on Earth, so we give thanks to the best ship manufacturer in the verse, Drake. I said it, and I meant it. Nobody owns me.
This IAE is the first event truly affected by the setting and realization that multi-crew ships are going to be more limited than many players thought. This through changes in engineering, weapon handling and requirements, further details of capital ship gameplay, and life support. This November, during the biggest sale of the year for CIG, we're seeing some interesting extra limited stock sales, Reddit threads of downsizing efforts to player fleets, and a general lack of enthusiasm for many. This is due to a combination of 4.0 delays and the performance of the game throughout the year overall, which we'll talk about later this month. But it's also due in large part, I think, to players worried that their dreams of large-scale solo gameplay may not feel as possible anymore with the realization of no NPC crews at Star Citizen 1.0 and general ship maintenance looming with engineering gameplay next year. This is a video about solo players, NPC crew, ship requirements, and why most of you shouldn't be too worried about coming changes. In fact, I'm going to tell you here why you're going to benefit from them. Let's get into it. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. One thing is clear about Star Citizen, and has been from the beginning. Large ships, their maintenance, and the importance of a crew were there from the first day of the Kickstarter. What was less clear was how often that would explicitly require other players. The communication around that has always been a bit nebulous, with the idea of 9 AI to every 1 player in the simulation of Star Citizen, to the occasional reference to NPC crew, to the regular questions regarding how solo capable of a game Star Citizen would be. It's plenty capable of that, they would say. At the end of the day, a player would always be better at their job than an NPC would, but you'd be able to make it work. But over the years, things have changed. The game has grown more complex, and this answer didn't shift along with those complexities. So up until CitizenCon of this year, or shortly after it on Spectrum, many players in Star Citizen would buy these huge 150+ meter ships that required no less than 8 people to run efficiently. Warships capable of dominating large spaces, base-building behemoths that could manufacture a space station, huge mining vessels capable of pulling in tens of millions of credits an hour, all bought in the thousands for years, with the expectations in some cases that the player could just get lost in space on this massive ship amongst some NPCs building out their business alone. It does sound pretty nice, doesn't it? And up until a few weeks ago, with the announcement that NPC crews would not be in Star Citizen 1.0 at the release, many players were buying ships based on that idea. And there is no guarantee of when that will become a reality even after 1.0, or how integral it'll be to the overall design of Star Citizen. This would obviously then be a big change from what some players have been expecting. Along with this, engineering or ship maintenance, which was a confirmed feature during the Kickstarter, a detailed part of the game in early years, and in public development since 2020, has caught some people by surprise that ships won't always be pristine. The introduction of wear and tear over the last few years is taking a huge step forward with damage going to components, fuses, and your ship's hull. But there are reasons this is actually a positive change to ship health for everybody that we'll talk about later in the video. So looking at these two complications, both the NPC crew and engineering gameplay, who is it that's actually worried about these developments in Star Citizen? Well, the game's player base is made of many opinions and camps of thought. The groups that feel this one most are the players who bought big ships, who want to play in a very specific way with those big ships, and who, most importantly, now believe that they cannot play in that way because a lack of NPC crew or the inclusion of engineering make it impossible. These players also don't really want to use the newly announced social tools that they're working on to play with others down the line. They essentially are looking for a single-player experience. And a large amount of people put themselves in that camp. I ran a poll on this on the channel just a few days ago, and a quarter of you said you'd be sticking to smaller ships now due to engineering specifically. I think these worries are overblown for all but the worst cases of soloing large ships. I think most players will be fine, will barely notice engineering, won't need NPC crew like they might think, and I think most players will actually benefit from engineering being added. Let me explain. Should you be worried about all this? Well, yes and no. Many worries are coming from some extreme views. Most ships will be soloable to an extent. From what we've seen of engineering, ship maintenance isn't going to be an issue if you're flying your ship normally and not getting shot at all the time. But also, it's been pretty clear since the very beginning and reintroduced as an important aspect of the overall game that components and ships would deliver an experience akin to Sea of Thieves in space. That is, one that requires some hands-on love and care when in a tight situation. So if you've been working on that assumption this whole time and are okay with needing to look for some help when going into a larger scale battle or to get the highest efficiency out of your ships, then you have nothing to worry about. But I do understand some of you were thinking that extra help wouldn't have to be a pesky human. That being said, nothing else has changed. In fact, your worries shouldn't even start yet because we haven't even gotten a chance to try these features for ourselves. They were delayed from the initial 4.0 update, so engineering, fire hazards, and life support features are not yet in a place where we can determine how problematic they might be. I think many are missing the benefit of this addition too, that no matter what ship you use, often when you take damage, you'll be able to land and fix it on the spot. This means less returning to space stations, less trying to limp home when you can barely fly because of torque imbalances, and best of all, less times exploding in your ship every time you take a large amount of damage. That on its own means less times restarting, less times getting your inventory set up, less times running through the city, and less time not playing the game. Overall, this idea that ships will last longer based on how we treat them means that players have more control over their game session itself. But when these features do come, and we do have the chance to start testing out these scenarios for this gameplay and how they'll balance large ships, you should go out there and replicate the scenarios you see yourself doing in the future. Try them out, record the results, and post your findings with the reason why you think it's the right or wrong direction. The devs see this feedback, and whether we agree with each other's opinions or not, CIG should have the information, right? In fact, you can already give a small part of the gameplay, just a little nugget of engineering, a try in Arena Commander and get some early ideas and some feedback in about what you might think. The hardest part about our role in all of this is trying to keep in mind all the different features that will follow, affecting ship flight and gameplay and where they land. As mentioned earlier, NPC crews are coming to the game, but not until after 1.0. This makes a big difference in your ability to solo a large ship when in combat or attempting to reach peak efficiency. AI blades, which can control things like turrets or other ship functions, are less capable versions of similar tech, and will greatly assist players in some functions around their ships, both big and small. These are planned for 1.0 and thus we'll probably see them sooner, but still likely not for years. And these are just two of many features in the process of building out our ship's relationships with the game and around it. VTOL thrusters, quantum boost, armor ratings, quality tiers, power management, control surfaces, logging on and off, taxes and fees, component wear and tear, hell, even dynamic server meshing are all going to have effect on or be affected by these larger ships in the game. It's a lot of things. This is a lot of stuff. These ships are going to be very complicated parts of Star Citizen, which is itself going to be a fairly complicated game. So there are going to be many opportunities for things like this to cause some uneasiness around the ships that you're looking into. And I would say for that reason, it's probably best not to get too invested in any one ship's particular statistics, and to not spend money on those ships based on said statistics. And this is all just to say that we're at one point in a very long list of development features and updates that will flesh these ships out into what they're supposed to be. And when it all does come down to how this is applied, I think CIG is going to steer a clear line down the middle of the path. I don't think engineering and ship maintenance will be so difficult that you can't fly around your big ship solo. But I do believe you're not going to be able to get much out of that ship at any one given time with only one body in there. And I do believe that various difficulties like atmospheric flight, control surfaces, taxes and fees for hangar usage, defending bigger ships in more dangerous situations, and fuel costs are going to make large ships less interesting to take out regardless, unless you're doing something important. This game has never been shy about money sinks and game-focused trade-offs. They've just been not implementing them as much lately. Now, we're going to start to see the needs for power, something that has been in games since 3.0 with the pipes and items 2.0 system, but not utilized much outside of thrusters and weapon systems. Armor is becoming more specialized to benefit stealth, power, or even EVA capabilities, something that's been in the plans since at least the multi-tool was introduced as a method of getting around if you don't have an EVA-capable suit. And yes, if your power supply takes too much damage and runs into a glitch, it could start a fire, and you'll have to be the one to run the length of a football field to the back of your ship to put it out, repair the component, and swap a fuse. The gaming-focused trade-offs are starting to land. But how often are you really taking that much damage? This to me is that middle of the path road. For players who don't abuse their ship, I think this is a change that you won't really notice too much. It's mainly going to be combat players who are already taking a lot of damage to their ships, and players who want to run multiple stations on their industrial-focused ships all at once, all the time, at full power. I mean, you guys are already taking plenty of damage out there fighting and then returning to a space station and getting repaired. You can still do that with this same system. Land at a space station, touch up your components and get your health rechecked, and then go off and do whatever you were doing. If you're just flying around, you'll likely rarely have to touch your components. In fact, as your components are taking damage and need to be repaired out there, you'll be able to do it right there on the go, in the field without returning to a space station because of this new system. Or you'll be able to steal components from ships you find, or bring replacements with you and store them in your cargo hold. And as an added benefit, your ship's also not going to explode anymore and just game over every time you take too much damage. This system, in my opinion, brings more pros than cons to the ship situation, and the cons mainly seem to aim to balance ships without making them impossible to use. That being said, expectations had been set based on having a couple extra helping hands there that didn't need to be slimy pesky humans. And this all combines, I think, to be more on people's minds as the realities of Star Citizen become more, well, reality. And we're seeing the impact of that on IAE, through the different sales numbers we're catching, to just the general discussion I'm sure you might be hearing in your own circles in the community. Star Citizen has been talk for so long. Now that features are finally starting to get implemented and systems are coming online, the actual focus is returning to how this gameplay will affect the players. As always, keep these things in mind when playing the game. It'll always be changing until we reach the 1.0 goal, which I covered in this video up in the corner. I'd check that out. I advise not to spend more money than you want to support the game, otherwise you can earn everything else in the game at some point. And should you be worried about how ships are changing? I think only if you expect to get the absolute highest efficiency out of a bigger ship on your own. Because remember, everything can be flown, and even operated by one person. It's just a matter of how well you can do it. If you'd like to get started at this year's IAE during this current free fly period, it'll be going for a few more days after this video is posted. You can use the link in my video description, jointomato.com. This will use a referral code of one of our Onion level supporters on Patreon, getting you both an extra chunk of credits when you do finally start, and possibly, depending on when you see this video, a free hovercraft or vehicle in-game, as a thank you for being a part of the community. Even if you don't want to buy the game, it's currently free to play until December 5th, and you can come back to your account at a later date to actually buy it. Or you can come over to my live streams on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday where we pretty regularly host game giveaways as well. There's a lot to discuss and learn when it comes to how ships and their gameplay are being made for Star Citizen, and if you'd like to learn more all about it, consider subscribing here. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.